So this is around 2013. I had just gotten put on from some dude from Rhode Island. He put me on and I was trying to do my thing. It never ended up working out because I was always short with a re-up. I was always getting high on my own supply, and he basically just cut me off. I still owed him money and he was just trying to kill me. Yeah, I'll make a whole nother video about that. But at the time, I'm working for him and I'm holding work. So I'm very, very paranoid. Everywhere I go, I'm just like, I'm always worried. I'm worried about the cops because I got a warrant. I'm worried about the cops, and I'm worried about other people trying to rob me, which they were trying to do. Like, I'd be with somebody and somebody would call him and be like, hey man, can you front me a bag until Friday when I get paid? And they'd be like, no, dude, I can't front you. And he'd call me 30 seconds later, hey, can I get 4 grams? Like, you got the money? He's like, yeah, I got the money. Like, you just call, you know, so it was like stuff like that, just junky stuff. So, I'm walking around the old port and my boy Lance calls me. He says, hey, do you want to come over and hang out? Lance is a really good friend of mine. I've been friends with him since we were kids, probably since we were like 9 years old. Good friend of mine. I trust him. We're pretty tight. And I was like, yeah, I'll come over. So I go to his house and Anthony opens up the door. He says, what's up? I said, Lance just told me to come over. He's like, no, you can't come in. I said, I just talked to Lance. I said, he knows I'm on my way over right now. Boom, slams the door in my face, right? And I'm mad, right? I wanna punch this dude in the face, but I got so much work on me. I'm just so paranoid. I don't want to make a scene. I'm not trying to get the cops called for no like reason. So like I try to be quiet. So I'm just like, all right, I leave. So I leave. I call Lance. I'm like, dude, I just went to your house. Anthony opened up the door. So what's he doing there? Oh, he's just there. And he came to drop off some stuff to somebody who's there. I'm like, well, yeah, he wouldn't let me in. He's like, oh, he wouldn't let you in. He says, don't worry. He says, I'm at the store getting cigarettes. I'll be back in like 15 minutes. I'm like, all right. So I just start pacing back and forth. And whenever I had my work on me, I'd always like put it in a bush and I'd go across the street and I'd keep an eye on that bush just in case like I got busted. I wouldn't have it on me. It would be in the bush over there. So I'm just pacing around watching the bush and I call him and I said, hey man, I said, what's up? Is it cool for me to come over now? He says, I gotta go. Something's going down. Hangs up the phone. I'm like, man, all right. I don't want to keep standing around watching this bush, right? I'm paranoid. So I call him. I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's not picking up his phone. All of a sudden, I see ambulances and fire trucks racing down to his house. And this is a big apartment building, and there's cops and fire trucks and ambulances, and they're there like on a daily basis. So I'm not sure if it's because of him or not. And I call him like, hey man, he's like, I gotta go. Somebody just died. I'm like, what? Somebody just died, right? So when Anthony had opened up the door, I felt this like evil, weird energy. I've talked about this energy before in a different video about the guys who are running around shooting people. Yeah, I felt this like weird energy and it just didn't feel right. So anyways, I dip and I'm just waiting for the ambulances and for the fire trucks to leave. Eventually they leave. And so I go over. Oh, and to give you a little rundown on Anthony, Anthony's whole get down, like his full-time job was robbing people. So he would go down to the old port on a Friday and Saturday night, and he'd walk by people and go, coke, dope, I got that fire, Molly, E, you know, but never had anything. And so he'd stand on the corner and he'd get like a baggie of like baking soda and he'd like go like this and he'd take the plastic baggie and he'd rip it with his teeth and then he'd tie a knot and he'd like tie a knot on this baggie, go like this, and then he'd take another one and start doing the same thing like he's bagging up. But like, and if you didn't know him, you would think, yo, this dude's selling like right here. Like this dude's a drug dealer for sure, but he was not a drug dealer. So, and he did this all the time. He was always getting people. Like he made a full-time living on this. I've been downtown with him. He's asked me, hey, can you just come and watch my back? You don't have to do any work. Just if somebody tries to fight me, just kind of like jump in. But as long as you watch my back, he's like, whatever money I make, I'll split it with you. And he would. If you watched his back, he would split it with you. But if he was sick and you had something, he would try to rob you. He was just a real shady guy. A lot of people get like that when they're doing drugs. They just become different animals. But anyways, so the cops and everybody ended up leaving. I go up to Lance's house, and Lance is like upset. I was like, man, I said, what happened? And he's like, he says, you know Tony G? I said, yeah. I said, Tony G. I said, I just seen him today. He just got out. He's like, yeah. Well, he's dead now. I'm like, Tony G died? I'm like, dude, I just saw him like 3 hours ago. So Tony G had just gotten out, but he was in the work release program. So the work release program, when you're in the county jail, if you get to a certain point in your sentence and you meet certain qualifications, they let you apply to go to the work release section. The work release section, like you get to wear regular clothes and you're allowed to work in the community and get a job. Basically, it's just so that you can learn how to work, save money, and then get your own place when you get out. It sets you up for success. It's a great program. It's probably the best program in jail I've ever seen. I went through this program. It helped me out tremendously. It's a great program. Anyway, so Tony G is in this program. He saved up, I don't know the exact amount, but let's just say like $4,000. So he saves up $4,000. So he just got out. He gets out and he does the first thing that anybody else wants to do. He wants to get high. So he goes down the street and he buys brand new Jordan 4s, crispy red Jordan 4s. Or maybe they were Jordan 6s, I don't remember, but they were red Jordans, and buys a Nike tracksuit, new hats. You know, he's flossing, right? Buys a bunch of drugs, right? Goes over to Lance's house. He's getting everybody high, right? Just having a great time celebrating being out. Well, what happened is he ended up, oh, and so everybody knew, this is the thing, everybody knew that he had just gotten out, okay? So everybody knew that Tony G had just gotten out of jail because he's buying from all of the local dealers. One of the people that also knows is Anthony. So what happens is he runs out of drugs and he's looking for more. Somehow he ends up contacting Anthony, and Anthony says, yeah, I got drugs. He's like, where are you at? He's like, oh, I'm over here at Lance's house. He's like, all right, I'll be right there. So this is like unofficial, but this is what happened, but it's unofficial. So he gets there, sees that, and keep in mind, Anthony is a hustler. So he's always got his fake bags on him, right? Once in a while he does have some, because he's a junkie, so he does have some real drugs, but he's always got fake drugs stashed somewhere. So what he does is he goes over, and Tony G knows who this guy is. He knows he's a scammer, knows he's a robber. And he's like, dude, I'm not going to give you any money unless you show me you actually got something. So what Anthony does is he pulls out some real dope, right? Gives it to him and says, here, you can try it, right? So he draws it up. What Anthony does is Anthony had a vial of liquid fentanyl. So what he used to do is, as his hustle, is he would drop drops of the liquid fentanyl. All right, so he would get dope. He would cut the dope with sugar, and then after he cut it with sugar, he'd take a drop of the liquid fentanyl and then drop it in as a way to like stretch it and double his money, right? He knows that Tony G had just gotten out. He knows Tony G has a pocket full of money. And Tony G, he shows off. Like, he's all about flossing, so I'm sure he was getting it out. I'm sure he was counting it. And Tony G, he's tough, man. He worked out all the time. Tough kid, so he didn't have a problem showing off his money, because if somebody was going to try to fight him, he just would have beat him up, right? So, and Anthony knows this. Anthony is not going to try to fight him one-on-one or try to rob him, you know what I mean? He'd get his ass whooped. So what Anthony does is he takes out one of the bags that he has. that has like half dope, half sugar in it. And he takes the fentanyl dropper, goes, puts like 10 drops of the liquid fentanyl on it, right? He says, yeah, here, I'll give you a bag for, I don't know, whatever it was, 40 bucks, I don't know. Gives him a bag and says, here, you know, you can try this before you buy any more, right? Because Tony G wants to try it before he gives him any more money because he knows he's a scammer. So what he does, draws it up, does it, boom, goes out. Which was Anthony's whole plan to begin with, was to have him go out. I don't think he knew how much to give him, so he was just, but he knew that he'd just gotten out, so he knew that he didn't have that high of a tolerance, so he knew that he wouldn't have to put too much in there. So, and I don't know how many drops he put in, whatever it was. So he goes out and starts like going through his pockets, taking his stuff, right? But he can't find the money, right? So dude's out, he cannot find it. He's like, you know, can't find it. So eventually he rips off the dude's pants, right? And he still can't find it. He's got the guy's pants off. He still can't find it, right? And ends up turning him over, and he sees that he's got a stack of hundreds like this, and he's got it wedged between his, you know, he's got it wedged right there. So, so he takes it. Lance ends up coming in and seeing him, and he's like, he thought they were doing like some gay stuff. Lance is like, what are you guys doing, right? He's like, oh, nothing. And Lance is like, man, you gotta go. And he's like, huh? And so, and he says, Tony G. And Tony G's not responsive. So Lance is freaking out, thinking like, what'd you do? Kill him or something? You stab him, but there's no blood. So Lance rolls him over. And Lance said when he rolled him over, he said he was completely purple. He had no pulse. He was gone. So that means that Anthony had to have given him the shot and stayed with him. Because when you go out, you don't just die. Like you go through a thing called the death rattle, where it sounds like you're snoring, but it's really your breath. Like it sounds like that. Usually you do the death rattle, and then you die. So it doesn't take long, but it's not like 10 seconds, you know? So, yeah, and so Lance immediately just calls the cops, and calls 911, and Anthony dips, boom, he's gone. So, so Lance calls the cops. Cops come over, they have the coroner, you know what I mean? They take the body out. He's gone, and Lance is telling me all this, and I'm trying to like process everything. I had to get more information from somebody else and more information from somebody else to get this video to you. But yeah, and so that's what happened. So there's something else I want to tell you guys. Oh, so the next day, I go to a house, and who do I see? It's Anthony. And he's got a nice pair of Jordans on, and they're too small for him. I said, man, I said, those shoes don't look like they fit. And he's like, you know what I mean? Just not saying nothing to me, right? Because I think he knew, right? And I'm like, man, like you killed the dude just, you know, and, oh, and he was at this house, and you couldn't go to this house unless you had money, because these people wouldn't let you in the door unless you were going to buy something. So I knew he was over there buying. So he basically killed the dude, took his shoes, took his money, and yeah, and that's the way it is. And those types of things are so common. Like, what I'm telling you happens all the time. It never gets reported because it's just a bunch of junkies. Police don't want to deal with a bunch of junkies. Like, even though it's a human being, there's so many overdose and deaths from fentanyl and heroin. They just becoming a statistic and just a name in the hat. Yeah.